Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So today is Monday, therefore we will be working in my sketchbook, but I will kind of be using that a little bit later as I wanted to show you guys this really cute kind of wooden handmade coaster that my friend Star Artist made for me for my birthday last week. And it's really cute. It's on this kind of wooden, I think it's like an MDF board. You can follow her socials right here, and she painted it with gouache and then had some kind of sealant on top so that it becomes water resistant. And she also sent me a blank version for me to paint one for myself, so I thought it'd be fun to do that for a video. So that is what I'm going to be doing today, but we will do some other sketches in my sketchbook as well. So let's go ahead and crack open my sketchbook so we can do some preliminary sketches to plan out for the actual coaster designs and just ruling out any of the ideas that I had in my brain for this. So sorry for the lighting changes. I did record this at night, or like in the evening, and then later on at night, so the lighting is going to change quite drastically because I'm using artificial light and then sometimes I'm using the actual natural lighting. So to start off, I want to kind of plan out the composition. I do want to kind of keep it more to flowers and foliage for the theme. I don't really want to draw any characters or anything like that because I don't trust myself too much when it comes to painting. And what I'm deciding for the coasters is that because I own acrylic paints and I own a acrylic glossy varnish, I thought it'd be okay for me to use those for this project. So for the thumbnailing, like I said, I'm kind of planning out the composition a little bit. I have a kind of like medium-sized-ish sketch, and then I have some smaller ones just to get a better idea of how I want to fit the elements onto the circle. Now, similar to how Star did her coaster for me, I want to keep the edges exposed because it is a wood coaster. I would like to keep the wood intact for the most part so that we know what kind of material it is. So I'm going to keep a wooden border all the way around. I'm also not going to paint the edges. So for me, I want to make sure that the things inside the circle itself is going to be self-contained. So this is kind of what I came up with. The bottom one's actually going to follow pretty closely to how I wanted my thumbnail to be, and then the top one is actually just going to be entirely scrapped, and we'll get into that when we start painting actually. So initially when I started to do the sketching portion of my design for the coaster, I was going to sketch directly on top with pencil, but I decided that I should probably plan out the borders first, and then I just basically traced the kind of perimeter around my tape roll because it was actually a good size for that, luckily. And then I'm taking some more of the painter's tape to kind of block off where I want none of the paint to get onto the borders. So even though I'm like haphazardly kind of taping this, I am going to retrace my circle that I made before because luckily the painter's tape is a little bit see-through, so I could see my original like lines from the pencil so that we can make sure that things are lined up again. And then I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut away to kind of make a stencil for myself, basically using the tape to kind of block off the edges so that we can have a nice clean edge, because I don't trust myself with acrylic paint, and because it's not like gouache, I'm not going to be able to remove it with water or anything like that. And I feel like even for gouache, it's going to seep into the wood, so I probably won't be able to clean it up too well. So for the paint itself, I am going to be using the Ohuhu paint that I bought for a different project earlier this year, I believe. If not, it was the end of last year. But it comes with a lot of different colors and it gives me a good assortment to kind of work with. I have this kind of piece of kind of craft paper that I like to use to cover my desk so we don't get paint onto the white desk. And then I have this old picture frame that has like a white piece of paper underneath, and then that's what I'm using for my palette. This is also what I used the acrylic paints more recently for, was for the tiny little Zhongli chibi figure that I made using with like air clay. So moving on, I went ahead and went downstairs to use my paint scraper that I found to scrape away some of my excess paint on this this picture frame so that I can go ahead and have a cleaner surface for me to mix colors, and then I'm mixing colors a little bit more accurately. The brushes I'm using is just an assortment of brushes that I don't use no longer for like gouache or watercolor painting, so I'm just going to be using them for today's acrylic painting. So starting off with the colors, I decided to do a gradient from pretty much black to Prussian blue to more of a cerulean or just more of a mid-tone blue. And then after that, I started to block in some of the flowers and just some blobs and shapes. So I'm trying to keep my brush kind of on the drier side at this point, because one thing that I wanted to do for the blue kind of flowers for this piece is that I want to make them glow, and I will see if I can find the reference picture that inspired me to do this one, so I'll just throw it up on the screen. But it's basically from Pinterest, and the way how I'm going to achieve kind of the glowy effect, besides the fact that I tried my best to layer from making the backgrounds as faded as possible, and as we get closer to the front, we're going to get a lot brighter and a little bit more of that structured look for the flowers, so that they don't look as blurred or anything like that. So to make things look a little bit more hazier, and I'm going to do this a little bit more closer to the end after we put in the lighter toned flowers, is that I'm going to be dry brushing a lot. So that's kind of another reason why I wanted to make sure that I blocked off the edges of my coaster, because when I'm dry brushing, I don't want to try my best to keep within the borders or anything like that. It's going to be harder for me to do that. So taping it off definitely helps. At this stage, I picked a lighter blue and I mixed it a little bit with white. Now I feel like my camera makes it look a little bit more fluorescent than it actually is. It's still a pretty blue in real life, but I feel like my camera is making it feel like a little bit more greeny and glowy. I tried my best to knock back the color intensity so that it could be accurately shown on the camera, but you can see that the little haziness is actually due to my dry brushing with the lighter blue. I'm also going to do something similar to the little stars and speckles in the sky so that they look like they're also kind of glowing. And dry brushing is just a lot easier for me to do that. And basically to dry brush, usually you take an old brush that you don't mind kind of beating up a little bit, and you dab a little bit of paint, and with the excess amount of paint that you have left on your brush, usually because it's such a minimal amount, you're able to almost just brush it and kind of like push around the paint ever so slightly, because if it's too wet, you'll just be making kind of like paint strokes and stuff. But if you kind of lightly swirl or dab or whatever you want to do for dry brushing, it kind of gives this hazy effect. So I really like using that for any glowing objects or anything that needs a little bit more of a softer gradation. So that's what I did, and to kind of make sure that I had the right consistency, I had a spare piece of paper to allow myself to get rid of as much excess as possible, because on this dark background, if I make it super bright, it's going to be super apparent. So let's go ahead and move on to the back. So I mixed up this greenish gray color, and it's not going to be as green for you guys as it is for me. It kind of looks more like a cool gray for you guys, but I did not follow with the plan that I actually had for the back side, which is this side. And I decided that I would just put this kind of grayish background, and then in the center I would make more white. And the more I started to dry brush and try to fix things, I didn't really like it. So in the bottom right hand portion of the circle, I decided to make that where the gradation will be, so that in the upper left we'll have a darker kind of green. And you can see that because I was scared of making the gradation, I'm basically almost dry brushing to get the gradation to work out in my favor. It doesn't look too bad. It does look a little bit more hazy compared to how I did the black to blue, but that's like kind of okay for what I wanted to do anyways. So basically the reason why I switched plans, so in my sketchbook I actually had more of a pastel look that I wanted to go for, but it was supposed to be more purples and pinks, or just more pale purples, so that it could match with my desk mat, which you guys have probably seen in previous videos, which has like the little kind of purple and like, I don't know, like lightish lavenderish colored whales kind of floating across, and it's a really cute desk mat. But I wanted the coaster to match it, but for some reason I saw another reference on Pinterest that had more of an oriental kind of I don't know how to explain the aesthetic. It has more like bamboo leaves and like light cherry blossoms that are more on the white side. It also had more of that Chinese, I don't know how to explain, like screen door kind of aesthetic as well. So I was looking at it and I was like, I kind of like the color scheme of it, so I decided to paint something similar with the same color scheme. I'll see if I can find the reference photo, but because it's not something I hadn't planned. I don't remember if I pinned it, but if I can find it, I'll try my best to put it on screen as well. But I think I should have stuck with the pastel themed what was purple, because I think because I had a small inkling of how I wanted it to turn out, I wouldn't have struggled as much with this one, because this one I kind of just winged it. I decided to randomly place the leaves and place the flowers and adding like blades of grass and stuff, and it feels very, I don't know, a little incomplete, a little bit weird. The color scheme is not too bad, but obviously you can tell that I didn't spend a lot of care painting this one. There's gaps and just kind of like the brush strokes aren't super clean. This one I feel like being clean didn't really matter for the blue one because I kind of wanted certain areas to be hazy. But let's move on anyways, because there's not any point to dwell on why I don't like it, I guess. So now that I've finished painting, I'm carefully peeling away my paint from the borders. Now, as I'm peeling away, I'm trying to make sure that the tape is, like I said, peeling away from the actual painting portion, because I don't want to rip the tape towards my painted surface, because I'm scared that it'll accidentally peel or rip kind of the acrylic off of it, because the acrylic does become more of a plasticky surface after it's been dried. So for just a little bit of cleanup, I took my X-Acto knife, and around some of the edges, I think there was a little bit of paint that didn't fully come off with my tape. So I'm basically scraping away, and because it doesn't absorb right into the wood, I can easily just scrape the top surface to make it look a little bit cleaner. Now, I really only had this problem on the top portion, probably because it's also a lot darker and I layered a little bit more on this side compared to the other side. But after that, after I deemed that things look clean enough and I won't be fudging with it too much anymore, I'm going to take the Liquitex, and this has the glossy varnish kind of finish. So I'm going to pour it into the small container, and we are going to brush it onto the surface and make sure that everything is nicely coated. Now, don't do the mistake that I did when doing this. I haven't used this varnish in a long time, and I forgot how exactly this particular varnish behaves. It doesn't self-level or anything like that, like some people do have self-leveling ones, and I don't have a soft enough brush to apply my varnish super evenly. Now, my first pass here isn't too bad because I went over a few times just pushing around the varnish, and as it dries, I'm kind of like smoothing it out slowly. But later on, I'm accidentally gonna pour a little bit too much, and it's definitely not necessary. Even right now when I was doing the edges, or even just now, I'm putting too much excess. You're supposed to wait about 3 hours in between each layer, and it recommends about 2 to 3 layers, and they're supposed to be fairly thin layers. And I've used this varnish on my little Stargazer figurine, my Briskadek figurine, and my Zhongli figurine, but I use super thin layers to the point where you can't see the brush strokes, and I forgot how apparent the brush strokes are if you use a thick layer, so I kind of regret that, but it's okay. I'm not giving this coasters to somebody, so I don't mind that I did a lot of testing on this kind of surface. Just make sure if you're using some kind of varnish or sealant or finish on top of your paintings or projects, read the labels and make sure that you do like a test, because I should have probably used a very small amount of varnish to kind of do my first few layers so that things don't have, very apparent horizontal or vertical strokes when I'm actually adding the sealant. So as my layers for my varnish kind of dries, I'm going to be working in my sketchbook to just kind of pass time, but also my friend sent me 2 really cute colored markers. So they're from the Tombow set, the water based markers. I think it's like the pastel ones as well, and it's kind of like this purpley blue color, and I think it's like supposed to be Serenity, and then more of a pastel pink color. So she uses these for some of her 17 sketches that she's done for like events and stuff, and she's given them as like little commissions and all that, and they're super cute. So she gave me a pair of the markers as well, and I really like the combination, so I'm also going to be doing a spread or 2. I might even do a few more at this point as I'm waiting for things to render or dry or anything like that to pass time, because it's a really cute combination. I'm also matching the colors nicely kind of with this vibrant blue color, and this is the Uniball. I believe it's the Vision Needle, and is it the Vision Needle? Give me one second. Yeah, Uniball Vision Needle, and this is in the size micro instead of fine, and it's just this really nice blue color that I think stands out nicely with a lot of like pastel colors or just any lighter toned colors. So I decided to use that, and I am sketching out Wonu, and that's pretty much who I'm going to be sketching out for the rest of today. There is going to be one small June sketch alongside with one of the Wonu sketches in my sketchbook, but for the most part I'm just going to be sketching out Wonu. So Wonu is a member from the K-pop group 17, and he's basically my alt biased. He's absolutely my favorite. And once again, I'm going to show you guys where I pour too much varnish, and you'll see me realize that I poured too much because I'll start scraping some of the varnish from the coaster back to my container. So I'm just going to kind of like swipe it against the edge of my container because I realized I poured too much. But for some reason, I should have just wiped as much excess off and then really thinned out the layers a lot. Also, for these kind of varnishes, don't thin it out with water, or at least this one recommends that you don't thin it out with water. So I'm not going to show you guys me varnishing the other side, but I did varnish the blue side and the edges, and then I'll flip it over and do the green side. And another problem I had is that when I did the varnish for the blue side with such a thick layer, especially for the sides as well, it kind of leaked and bubbled a little bit on the green side. So I have a little bit of pooling, which kind of sucks because after it dries, I can't really get rid of it. It's just kind of there unless I decide to maybe burnish it or sand it down. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it as is. But yeah. So moving on to the kind of like the spread of sketches that I initially wanted to do, and probably what you guys are most used to me doing. So I usually don't show the sketching portion just because you guys can't really see the sketches too well via my webcam, and the fact that my sketches tend to be on the very light side. So yeah, I decided to stick it in so you guys can just generally see how I kind of plan and hop around the page to fill up the whole spread. After that, I take the pink marker and I decided to fill in the skin, a little bit of certain warmer areas. Junie's hair is more on the brown side rather than black, so I made his hair pink. And then the rest of the areas are basically blue. Wonu's hair is black for this round of sketches, so I decided to fill it in with blue. And I forgot to give more context. So as we're doing the line work for Wonu and the singular Junie on this page, let me explain what these sketches are based off of. So 17 had a concert recently, or 2 days of concerts. It's from their follow tour basically, and I didn't watch any of the concert this time. I didn't buy tickets or anything just because I was too busy, and I didn't want to buy tickets if I knew I wasn't going to be able to watch it because I needed to finish stuff. I might buy it in the future and see if I can still watch the VODs or whatever, but for the most part a lot of people do like photos and screen caps and stuff, so I saved a bunch of those photos and bookmarked them on Twitter, and there's a lot of cool and cute outfits for all of the members, so I really wanted to draw them. But one thing I really wanted to draw was just a bunch of Wonu because I love drawing him the most, and because he has black hair, I kind of thought it would be fun to block in with the blue in certain areas. I have another spread which I really liked where I kind of did the hair color with kind of more of a pastel tone, and then with this kind of particular pen fill in only one side but also put indication of like a little bit of texture and or like shading to help make things look a little bit more, I don't know, punchier in a sense. So I really like using this particular kind of dark blue color alongside with pastel colors, especially if they're kind of more cool tone. I just think the color combination looks really nice. Also, if you're not a fan of 17, their fandom colors, or their fan colors basically, are kind of this blue and a pink, and it's kind of rose quartz and serenity. So these are actually fairly close to the colors that are their official fandom colors. So that's pretty much it for today's session. If you want to use these particular colors, do check out I think it's the Pastel Tombow water-based markers. They are dual-ended, and even though I own this pair of markers alongside with the whole set, I never really used this combination. I've always used this kind of pastel pink with the, I think, kind of like the lighter, more cyan colored blue, and then I've also used the darker pink with the cyan color, and I used the darker pink with this marker as well in the past. But for some reason I never used those two colors together, so thank you, Star, for gifting me the markers and showing me your adorable sketches. And I really love this color combination, and thank you again for making me the coaster for my birthday. I can't talk. And also giving me the blank coaster for me to kind of paint and try out as well. I had a lot of fun painting with acrylics again, even though it's a little bit of a struggle for me. But maybe in the future I will do a few more acrylic painting because I still have a few boards that I can use to paint with. But I think that's it from me. Yeah, make sure to follow my friend Star if you would like to. I'll leave her socials right here, and I'll make sure to link anything down below in the description if you would like to. And I think that's it for today's video, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!